Welcome to the Golden Seams podcast. I'm Gabe, and along with my co-host Michae, we're thrilled to have you join us on this transformative journey of self-discovery and personal growth. Our podcast is all about helping you uncover your authentic self, find your true calling, and create prosperity in alignment with your deepest values and aspirations.
As you know, we're continuing our deep dive into the theme of boundaries, a crucial aspect of living authentically and pursuing your true path. We're exploring Melissa Urban's insightful book, The Book of Boundaries, Set the Limits That Will Set You Free. But before we jump into discussing boundaries, which we know are life-changing, we'd like to thank all of our listeners, subscribers, followers, and especially our wonderful Patreon members for your support, sharing this community and this path, quoting us, tagging us, whatever kind acts you do with your friends, family, colleagues, and those who, well, just get it. Your gentle but powerful acts of support, no matter how small, tell us and the world this resonates. So we thank you wholly and fully from our hearts for being the catalyst wherever you are, because it only takes one step forward to begin to step into your magnificence. Setting boundaries with yourself can happen in an instant, don't require anyone else's cooperation, and can make your life infinitely happier, healthier, calmer, and more productive. Boundaries are designed in part to help you create, maintain, and preserve healthy relationships. Sometimes the relationship that boundary preserves is yours with yourself. Self-boundaries are in their own unique category for two reasons. First, since you're only talking to yourself, respect for that boundary depends on one person and one person only. This can be a blessing and a curse. It's certainly easier to uphold a healthy limit if you decide it's in your best interest, but not everyone responds to internal expectations the same way. Melissa Urban, from her book, The Book of Boundaries, Set the Limits That Will Set You Free. Chapter 10, Gifts to Future You, Setting and Holding Boundaries with Yourself. Gabe and I are going to be talking about knowing your tendency to help you set effective boundaries with yourself, why it's especially difficult setting boundaries with ourselves, pain points and how they can help you recognize a need for a self-imposed boundary, two main categories of self-boundaries, stressful situations and habits and goals, helpful self-questions, do it your way, find the limit that works for you, the formula from Melissa for self-boundaries, automating self-boundaries, Melissa's brilliant reframe on consequences from breaking boundaries with yourself, freeing yourself if you get stuck, Melissa's prep tips, including what to do if your self-boundaries don't feel empowering or liberating, Melissa's scripts, freedom and consequences, which I love, the freedom part, without the red, yellow, and green, the one-touch principle, boundaries designed to help future you achieve everything on your vision or mood board, and Melissa's 3 bonus habit hacks that you can apply almost universally to any self-boundary.
Melissa now introduces The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, who outlines a fabulous framework for determining how people respond to internal and external expectations. She breaks down the response instincts into 4 types. 1. Upholders. Someone who identifies as an upholder responds to internal expectations remarkably well. 2. Questioner. Questioners will respond to external expectations if they make sense to them. You will ask a lot of questions and need to get convinced of the benefits before you sign on to anything, but once you do, you'll get it done. 3. Obliger. If you identify as an obliger, you don't respond well to internal expectations. You really need external accountability to make things stick. 4th is the rebel. If you identify as the rebel, you don't respond well to outer or inner expectations. If someone asks or tells you to do something, you resist.
So, Gabe, which one are you?
I'm not going to tell you. Which one are you?
I'm not going to tell you either. Rebel. Melissa says that no one tendency is better than any other, but knowing your tendency and working with it, not against it, Gabe, can help you find the right language and approach to solidify new habits, lose bad ones, and set effective boundaries with yourself.
I don't want to hear about it.
Melissa also says there's another reason certain people find self-boundaries especially difficult, and that has to do with what happens when you violate your own boundary. Think about it. She says, what does happen? If you set a boundary with yourself that you will not do something and you break your own boundary, the consequences of violating the boundaries you break with yourself feels less important, obvious, or relevant when they're imposed on you by you, especially when you're the only one who decides if you want to enforce the boundary in the first place. Melissa goes on to say, maybe you try to manufacture a consequence, except you're smarter than that, aren't you? I hope so. Nobody likes the idea of punishing themselves, she says, and again, who's going to enforce it? It's harder for us to change or adapt our behavior when the consequences feel airy, negotiable, or irrelevant, especially when instant gratification is right in front of us. That is so true. Painfully true.
Painfully true. It's like I'm having to take care of a pet in my mind. Domesticate my thought patterns somehow.
Yes. Which leads us into the next section, pain points.
In the next section, Melissa helps us look for pain points and help identify a place in our life where we need a self-imposed boundary. She has us check in areas that make us feel stressed out, things that make us reactive, and circumstances that provoke our anxiety or make us not feel well. She also invites us to ask people we trust who can help point it out kindly. She then outlines the pain points. Is there one particular part of my day that feels the most stressful? Is there one piece of technology or social media that provokes the most anxiety? Is there a habit I really want to start and that I know would benefit me, but I just keep blowing it off? Is there a habit I'm stuck in that I know isn't serving me, but I don't know how to stop? Is there a goal that I'm working toward that could be furthered if I just set a limit? This really made me think about how much difficulty I had when trying to regulate my screen time for myself on my phone. For several months, I would try different morning routines. I would try scheduling different activities throughout the day to kind of interrupt the thought processes that were getting me caught into the doom scroll loop. This was before I read the boundaries, and I realized that I was not doing a great job. So I found these apps that I think now are good complements to the boundary work. You can program limits. I can choose which apps on my phone, like Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. If I click on those during a certain time of the day, the phone will ask me if I really want to do that. And if I say yes, then it makes me do a breathing exercise that I get to determine how long it is. And there's no way to bypass it to open the app, conveniently at least. It's actually helped reduce my screen time tremendously.
Wow.
It's been very, very helpful, actually. And I don't know if I would have been able to on that one with the social media stuff. And I feel like a lot more science goes into the architecture of the app framework to make it addictive, the nature of the content.
I find I repel it. It's not even tempting for me, but the part about, is there a habit I want to start that would benefit me? What I find interesting is I can combine some of these questions that she gives us here. And I think about a habit that I want to start. For example, regular daily exercise that benefits me. And doing it first thing in the morning when I wake up, it stresses me out. So combining some of these.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is there a habit that I'm stuck in that I know isn't serving me, but I don't know how to stop? And it's procrastination or sabotage. And it's amazing how much energy it takes for me to sabotage and procrastinate. This one thing that when I'm doing it, I feel so much better. And I do it like I'm dragging my feet. And then when I'm in it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You give it 5 minutes, you're fine. You're over yourself.
Yeah. It's hard breaking through. It's like a momentum shift or like a tipping point in the inertia of the day. That one's always been the trickiest for me too. With stuff I was just not able at all with the phone for some reason.
I believe that a lot of people have that. I find that it's overstimulating.
I felt like I was getting pulled into these wormholes. Sometimes I would be doing stuff like client work and getting their socials posted. Before I knew it, 30 minutes had passed and I'm on random stuff on the search page and not realizing till I look at the clock again. And then I felt completely violated. There was no informed decision making on my behalf for myself in that exchange with the phone. It started creating a control happening over my own volition and sovereignty with myself. Since that one actually started getting much more managed with those apps I installed, I see a lot more energy and spaciousness in my psyche actually opening from it. And that's when I was finally able to start an exercise routine. I looked at my screen time. Wow, if I could just figure out how to cut this part of my pizza day, this slice of my pizza, and apply it to somewhere else, not only would it make me feel better about not spending it there, not on purpose, reapplying it towards something, also the mental health benefits of not being mindless at any point during the day. I'm never proud of those moments.
It's true. Missing time.
Yes, it's siphoned.
I agree. I'm thrilled to announce that we're offering exclusive content on our Patreon, The Golden Seams. We want to take a moment to further explain what we are doing to support and benefit you on your path. Our Golden Alchemist level members all receive a specially crafted 15 to 20 minute deep meditation focused on creating and maintaining clear, kind boundaries, our theme right now. This meditation, when practiced daily for 21 to 30 days, can help you naturally integrate healthy boundaries in your relationships, with yourself, and energetically, fully helping you to incorporate positive boundaries into your life, paving the way for authentic living and personal growth.
This membership level also includes a powerful 1-hour boundaries subliminal audio, which serves as the backdrop for the deep meditation. These audios are designed to help release difficulties in creating clear, kind boundaries, while simultaneously assisting you in establishing and maintaining them. They incorporate solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats for maximum effectiveness. Michae, guided by her higher senses, creates these transformative tools previously reserved for her private clients. To amplify your boundary setting journey, we're including a custom designed mandala by a talented artist from India, who we find to be intuitively guided, synchronized with our themes. This visual tool, when infused with your own energy and displayed in your workspace or on your vision or mood board, can help manifest clear, kind boundaries in your life. The mandala serves as a powerful manifestation tool, helping you bring your desires and intentions into reality. Both the audios and the mandala are infused with Reiki energy by Michae, a Reiki master, to support you even further.
The combination of deep meditation, subliminal audio, and mandala work creates a powerful synergy.
Don't miss out on this opportunity to revolutionize your approach to boundaries, self-care, and living your true purpose. Subscribe to our Patreon today and start your journey towards a more balanced, fulfilling life that's truly aligned with your authentic self.
This leads us to Melissa's two broad categories: stressful situations and habits and goals. She says, setting a boundary around a habit or goal often also helps with your stress levels and vice versa. In both sections, you'll also be reminded of boundaries that you've set with others, such as alone time or not caving to the pressure to drink, that could be reinforced by setting a boundary with yourself, too.
Melissa goes on to share another resource called Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. Think of setting a self-boundary as a first step in establishing a new healthy habit or eliminating one that isn't serving you. Not every habit change starts with a self-boundary. Sometimes we just decide we want to start running or flossing our teeth. But once you identify and set a self-boundary, you'll need some kind of strategy to keep it in place. That's where the book Tiny Habits by PhD and Stanford behavioral scientist BJ Fogg comes in. You'll see tips from Tiny Habits and Fogg's 20 years of research sprinkled throughout this chapter, including the short and simple strategy for automating boundaries, environmental changes you can make to support your efforts, and thought exercises that will lead you from self-boundary to healthy habit in no time.
Melissa defines stressful situations as these are boundaries you'll set with yourself to ease your stress, avoid unnecessary conflict, and improve your health. She says you will likely discover that focusing solely on your own behavior can have a powerful impact on your stress levels. She goes on to tell us about habits and goals and says that these are boundaries you set with yourself around healthy behaviors you want to start or maintain, or behaviors you know aren't serving you or are hindering your goals. Is there one particular part of my day that feels the most stressful? The natural follow-up question would have been, well, what am I doing differently? And the answer for her would always jump out at her. Once you've answered these two questions, is there one particular part of my day that feels most stressful? And what am I doing differently? Then choose or look for something to do that's better for yourself. Melissa also tells us that when it comes to self-boundaries, the YCDI policy, or you can do it your way, applies here perhaps more than anywhere else. She says you can and should set the boundary that works for you because you're the only one it has to work for. Melissa offers this formula, and I think it's very helpful. She says, the key here is to thinking creatively to identify the boundary that works best to eliminate or marginalize your particular pain points. Then set those clear, kind limits around what you will or will not do to support those needs. It doesn't have to be a solution that works for someone else, although that's a great and easy place to start. She says, stay committed to exploring options until you land on the one that works best for you.
Melissa reminds us that we can automate the self-boundary too. The best way to automate self-boundaries is by keeping them as short and simple as possible. Ask yourself if there is one thing that you could do that would make holding your boundary effortless. Applying a tried and true principle from habit research that says the more difficult or complicated you make something, the less likely you are to do it, and vice versa. Taking the simplest or shortest route when you're thinking about setting a self-boundary makes it harder to disrespect your own limits and make it near effortless to uphold them.
I find it very interesting, this part here you just shared with us. It's interesting to me is you actually created more hurdles to get rid of a habit that you no longer wanted to have, and that worked effectively. And she's saying for a habit you do want to have, how can you make it easier? It makes me think about, for example, I never buy desserts and keep them in the house. If we have a birthday, we go out for the birthday. And then there's the dessert. Everybody has the dessert out. I don't bring them in the house because I don't eat sugar because it gives me headaches. I don't want that in my house. But if I were eliminating the habit of eating desserts or eating sugar, that would definitely be something that I would turn into a more difficult boundary.
Right.
By making it so that you actually have to make the effort to go out and get a dessert.
It's funny because I see it in this context. It makes a lot of sense with the boundary setting. Because I didn't have this kind of awareness around it, it came from a place of shame at first of not being able to manage my own.
Aww.
Yeah, it was humbling. Thank you. I think you're right about the obstacle setting.
On the flip side of this, as I think about this, about being able to make it easier, make it almost thoughtless for me to get up and exercise, and perhaps it's that I automate it somehow. Immediately put on my workout clothes, maybe even start listening to some workout music as soon as I get up that puts me in the mindset, oh, I'm going to go work out and then just do it, versus I ease into my morning.
The morning momentum is tricky to start building at first.
It's a D- on the mornings.
Passing grade.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, I do get up every day. Melissa talks to us next about reframing your consequences, and she says this is perhaps the most important aspect of self-boundaries because consequences aren't as natural or easily enforced when you're talking to yourself. She goes on to tell us that realistically she could go on breaking her own boundary. Then she says the deal breaker in this. She says, except there are consequences. You just have to think more about future you and the way these behaviors are affecting your life in the short term and long term. If you disrespect your own boundary, those are the consequences of breaking your own boundary. She says the energetic drain on future me, the strain that puts on my mental health, relationships and work life, and how awful I'll feel if I don't hold this one simple boundary for myself. Putting it in terms like that, it was easy to connect the boundary violation with the real consequences and a lot harder to justify breaking the boundary. This is a game changer. What will happen to future me if I break my boundary to myself? Putting this into context with two places where we are eliminating habits and creating habits. Future me, future Michae, prolonging my exercise. It's such a time and energy drain. Not to mention that on days where I manage to procrastinate my way out of it, don't get it done, it genuinely can affect my health. And that's not a price I want to pay. That's a big deal when you think about that. The other thing to think about is it's sort of that degrading as you get older. Everything gets more challenging. If you think of gradient, it's actually getting more steep the more you put it off. Whereas if you push that back and you get up, exercise, and you feel better, the day goes better, and you have that energy and that mindset back, not to mention how it helps your body, you're actually keeping the gradient more steady instead of letting it increase to a steeper incline.
That's a really good way to look at it.
So what about future you, Gabe?
This was like a stomach punch for me because this is not a joke, but I genuinely, for a good deal of my life, would drop something or make a mess in a corner of my room or office or get reminded about something I needed to do. Verbatim, this is what I would tell myself. That's future Gabe's problem. And I would continue. So this part of the book made me laugh.
Chills.
This part of the book made me laugh so much because when I got here, I think I've been doing it wrong. It became a habit off to my future self to do.
Are you serious?
That was a joke I would have with myself that became a habit. This was a good wake-up call to it.
You know that I actually pray for my past selves and my future self because I know that there is no time, there is no space differential. I understand that just from my science and physics backgrounds. I will send positive energy to myself from different points in my life to help me get through some of the most difficult challenges, but also to help me appreciate some of the most positive things in my life.
It makes way more sense. It was just creating small animosities against me and myself when I would realize the task had come to its deadline. That became habitual in my existence. In this chapter...
The ultimate form of self-sabotage.
It is absolutely the ultimate. And it was exactly what you said, the compound. Not only did I have the thing I put off, all the other stuff that came up with it, the interest of time and life also accumulating on it. So this is a game changer. It's
like being a narcissist against yourself.
He'll deal with it. And that's me over there on the other side of that threshold. No, I stopped doing that once I started having to get my ducks in a row to get my business going and start figuring out how to structure things in my life for myself. When I started phasing into self-employment, it clearly started not working out very quickly, so I just kind of dismissed it. But I have not gone back to do retribution to my past selves and try to figure out what was going on. I like the idea you have about praying forward and backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that.
I think a bigger picture for this is money and people being indulgent instead of wise.
Yes.
For their future selves.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
It's huge. It's creating, at that time, it was overwhelm, avoidance of accountability for myself. And I was putting off as if future me was separate now or past me. It's not proven to be true, luckily, because that also comes with a lot of power. That means that if I do take accountability now, I will be able to lighten the load for future Gabe and hook him up with a little bit better of a path, be friends.
Yes. I think the bare minimum that we can do is send support to ourselves.
Yes.
In difficult situations by simply having the positive thought, even if you're sending the idea of you can do it, or it's going to be okay, or it's going to get better, or I love you. Back or forward to yourself, especially the little kid of who you are.
Pickpocketing myself to hold space for myself without my own consent. I was borrowing from future me to hold space for now me without my consent from the future, pickpocketing some of that time from myself now without asking future me if it would be a good time or if that's okay. And then creating that movement that has the inchworm effect.
I could see it if a doppelganger version of yourself popped over and that version had it all going on. I would definitely say to that version, if you bump into yourself as a doppelganger, hey, you need to send some love.
Yes. What are you doing? Before I started building up my business and other stuff, it was a lot more avoidant behavior when I was going through some of my past struggles. So there was this huge avoidant construct in my self that manifested many different ways. This one, it felt like the book was calling me out specifically, which I appreciated.
It all makes us who we are. Who we are turns out to be pretty amazing in the end, no matter who you are.
I forgave myself. It felt like at the time I was stealing from myself, making myself my own worst enemy.
Incredible.
Melissa says if you ever feel stuck trying to establish a self-boundary, ask yourself, if you found value in today's episode, we invite you to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit.
Don't wait to start living authentically and remember who you truly are.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your authentic light. This is Gabe and Michae signing off from the Golden Seams. May your path be golden, and may you find the strength to mend and beautify the broken parts of your life, just like the art of Kintsugi.
Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.